Hey everyone, welcome back for another deep dive.
Yeah.
Today we're going to be tackling something pretty fascinating. I think the world of animal design.
This is a good one.
But with a bit of a twist.
Mm-hmm.
We're not just looking at, how cool animals look or, how they function.
Right.
We're going full-on Sherlock Holmes here. We're going to try to deduce an animal's entire lifestyle, what it eats, how it hunts, even its evolutionary history.
All from just looking at it.
Just by looking at its anatomy.
Yeah. It's incredible what you can uncover when you start thinking about bodies as machines, machines that are built for a purpose.
Yeah, that's exactly the approach that our source material takes for this deep dive. It's a chapter from a book that explores this whole idea of reverse engineering animal bodies to understand their purpose and how they've evolved.
It's like peeling back the layers of a puzzle.
Right.
And seeing how everything fits together.
The book even introduces this character, SOF.
Yeah.
He's like Sherlock Holmes, but for zoology.
I love that.
SOF can figure out an animal's diet, its lifestyle, and evolutionary past just by observing its anatomy.
It's a really fun way to illustrate the power of, observation and deduction in the natural world.
Okay, so to kind of kick things off, let's unpack this idea of reverse engineering.
Okay.
The chapter uses this really cool example, the Antikythera mechanism.
Oh, yeah.
Have you heard of this thing?
It's incredible.
It's this ancient Greek astronomical calculator made of all these gears and cogs.
Yeah, and for centuries, nobody knew what it did. It was this total mystery.
And by studying how each piece worked, we can actually reconstruct the entire purpose of this machine.
And that's exactly what we're doing with animal bodies. Yeah. We're taking them apart, not literally, of course,
right,
but by analyzing the different features, the teeth, the guts, the beaks, we can figure out their function and how they all work together.
But hold on a second. Assuming that every single feature is perfectly designed, isn't that a bit of a stretch?
Well, yeah, even the best engineers make mistakes, right? So it's natural to question whether evolution has really produced these flawless designs.
And the chapter does mention some pretty strong criticisms of this idea.
Yeah, there's a whole debate surrounding this concept of adaptationism.
Adaptationism.
It's the idea that every trait an animal has is a result of natural selection and therefore perfectly suited to its environment.
So basically, every feature has a purpose.
Right. And it's the best possible solution for that particular problem.
And I'm guessing there are some folks who disagree with that.
Oh, yeah. Big time. The chapter brings up some big names who challenge this idea.
Oh, yeah. Like who?
Like Richard Dawkins and Stephen Gould.
Those guys were not afraid to shake things up.
Definitely not. They argued that viewing everything as perfectly adapted is way too simplistic. Evolution is messy.
It's not always pretty.
Exactly. And it doesn't always produce the most elegant solutions.
Okay, so what are some of the wrenches that get thrown into this perfectly designed machine?
Well, the author outlines 5 categories of constraints that can limit perfection.
Right.
Yeah, one is this idea of time lags.
Time lags. What evolution takes a lunch break?
It's more like evolution is playing catch-up.
Okay.
For example, the human skeleton still has traces of our quadrupedal ancestors.
Oh, wow.
Even though we've been walking upright for millions of years.
So we're like we're talking evolutionary museums.
Exactly. We're carrying around these echoes of our past.
I like that. Okay, so time lags. What else?
Another constraint is historical constraints.
Historical constraints.
Yeah, it's like evolution has to work with what it's got, even if it's not ideal.
Okay.
A classic example is the vertebrate retina.
Wait, our retinas are weird.
They're backwards.
Backwards.
How?
Yeah, so the light-sensitive cells in our eyes are actually located behind the nerves and blood vessels.
Oh.
So light has to go through this whole mess of wiring before it even reaches the cells that detect it.
It sounds like a bad wiring job.
Yeah, it's not the most efficient design. And there's no way to rewire it without some major evolutionary upheaval.
Wow, okay, so we're stuck with our backwards retinas.
Pretty much. What else? Limits on perfection.
Okay, so sometimes there's simply a lack of available genetic variation.
Okay.
The book uses this example. Even if it were beneficial for pigs to have wings.
Flying pigs.
Exactly. They might never evolve them because the necessary mutations just haven't happened.
So even if natural selection's like, hey, wings would be awesome if the genes aren't there.
Right. It can't just make it happen.
Can't wave a magic wand.
Nope.
Interesting. What's next?
Then there's the trade-off between cost and benefit.
Cost and benefit?
Yeah. So even if a pig could grow wings, the energy needed to grow and carry them might be too high a price to pay.
Yeah, I guess wings aren't exactly aerodynamic.
And then there's an unpredictable environment.
Unpredictable environment? Like what?
Think of a reed warbler diligently feeding a cuckoo chick that snuck into its nest.
Oh, yeah. Those cuckoos are sneaky.
Total brood parasites.
So even the best laid plans of mice and men, or in this case, warblers and evolution,
Right.
can go totally awry.
It's a constant dance adapting to these ever-changing pressures.
But I bet some folks might say, wait a minute. Some traits just seem too small or too insignificant for natural selection to even care about.
Yeah, like, does evolution really care about the shape of a leaf or the curve of a snail's shell?
Right.
It's a good question, and the book tackles this head-on, citing Arthur Kane's concept of the perfection of animals.
Perfection of animals.
Kane believed that what might seem trivial to us could actually be vital for an animal's survival.
So, like, something that looks purely decorative could actually be super important.
Exactly.
Okay.
And even tiny advantages can spread through a population surprisingly fast.
Really?
Yeah. JBS Haldane.
Another big name.
Yeah, he calculated that even a minuscule survival advantage can become widespread in a pretty short evolutionary time frame.
So it's like winning the lottery of evolution.
Exactly.
Even a small win can make a big difference.
Absolutely. And it's not just about individual genes acting in isolation. The author talks about pleiotropy.
Pleiotropy.
This idea that a single gene can have multiple, seemingly unrelated effects on an organism's body.
So one little tweak can have all these ripple effects.
Exactly.
But even with all these amazing examples of adaptation, I think there's still this question.
What's that?
If evolution is so good at designing animals, why do our insides look so messy?
That's a fantastic observation. And the author actually addresses that very point.
Okay.
It all comes down to perspective.
Perspective.
While a layperson might see a jumble of organs when they look inside the body, a trained surgeon sees order and elegance.
It's like the difference between looking at a tangled ball of yarn and a beautifully knitted sweater.
Exactly. It's all about understanding the pattern.
Okay. So while our guts might not have the sleek, streamlined look of a cheetah, they're still incredibly efficient machines.
Oh, yeah. Millions of years of evolution have gone into making them work.
Okay. I think we've laid some really important groundwork here. We've talked about this idea of reverse engineering animal bodies, the debate surrounding adaptationism, and the fact that evolution isn't always about achieving perfect design.
Right. Evolution is a process.
Yeah.
And we've seen how internal anatomy, while seemingly messy at first glance, also reflects the power of natural selection.
But now let's put these ideas into practice.
Okay.
In the next part of our deep dive, we'll zoom in on a specific example.
What's that?
Teeth.
Oh.
We'll uncover how these seemingly simple structures reveal a ton of information about an animal's diet hunting style and evolutionary history.
Get ready to sink your teeth into some truly fascinating evolutionary stories.
Stay tuned, folks. Welcome back.
Yeah.
All right, I'm ready to dig into this idea of teeth as evolutionary clues. You know, the chapter even called them enameled archives.
Yeah, it's really remarkable how much information we can extract from these things.
Teeth are like time capsules.
Right.
They outlast even bones in a lot of cases.
And they can tell us volumes about an animal's lifestyle diet, its place in the prehistoric world.
Okay, so let's play paleontologist for a minute. Imagine we stumble across a mysterious skull half buried in the sand. Classic movie scene.
Right.
Maybe some dramatic music swelling in the background.
Gotta set the mood.
Where do we even begin to decipher its story?
Well, the first thing you probably notice are the canines. Those pointy teeth at the front.
Okay.
Now, it's natural to assume they're for fighting or hunting.
Right.
But then you need to look for more specific clues.
So we move on to the molars.
Exactly. The molars tell us a much more nuanced story about diet.
Okay.
If they're sharp and scissor-like, it suggests a carnivore perfectly designed for slicing through meat.
Makes sense. Meat doesn't need a lot of grinding. Just rip, tear, and swallow.
Exactly. But if the molars are broad and flat, built for crushing and grinding, that points to an herbivore, these animals need to pulverize that tough plant material.
So jaw structure would give us even more clues, right?
Oh, absolutely. Like whether it moves side to side for grinding or just up and down for slicing.
And don't forget about those eye sockets.
Oh, yeah, the eyes have it.
Their position can tell us whether this creature was a predator or prey.
Right. Forward-facing eyes like a hawk suggest a predator laser-focused on its next meal.
Makes you think twice about making eye contact with a hawk.
Whereas eyes positioned on the sides of the head like a deer suggest a prey animal constantly scanning for danger, always on the lookout for those sharp teeth.
Speaking of sharp teeth, the chapter uses some really cool examples to illustrate this.
Yeah.
Comparing the saber-toothed cat Smilodon with an extinct horse, Pliohippus.
Oh, yeah, it's a perfect illustration of how teeth can reveal an animal's ecological niche.
Okay.
So Smilodon, with those massive canines and scissor-like back teeth, was clearly built for a meat-heavy diet.
Those canines are insane. You can practically picture Smilodon taking down giant sloths.
Yeah, or mammoths.
And every feature of its skull reinforces that image. Powerful jaw muscles, the wide gait for delivering a killing bite, and of course those forward-facing eyes locked on the target.
Meanwhile, Pliohippus, our extinct horse friend, tells a totally different story. Broad, flat molars, sideways jaw movement for grinding, and those watchful side-facing eyes constantly scanning the horizon. You can practically see it grazing on the prehistoric plains.
Okay, it's amazing how those two skulls paint such different pictures.
Right. And this contrast shows us how teeth can reveal not just diet, but an animal's entire way of life.
But what about those animals that don't fit neatly into the carnivore or herbivore boxes?
Yes.
The chapter mentions Tearjudans. This creature sounds like something out of a sci-fi movie. It had saber-tooth-like canines, but herbivore molars.
Yeah, Tearjudans. It throws a wrench into our neat little categories.
So maybe those saber teeth were more for show or for fighting rivals.
Could be. It just shows that reverse engineering isn't always straightforward. Sometimes we need to dig a little deeper, consider multiple possibilities.
It's like being a detective. You need more than one clue to solve the case.
Exactly.
Speaking of specialized teeth, the chapter also talks about insectivores, right?
Oh, yeah, those bug-eating specialists.
With their sharp, pointy teeth.
Perfect for piercing exoskeletons.
Like a hedgehog.
Yeah, those tiny teeth are like little needles.
And then you've got your fish eaters. Like dolphins and gavials.
Yep.
With rows of small, pointed teeth for gripping their slippery prey.
It's a great example of convergent evolution.
Convergent evolution?
Yeah, when faced with similar challenges, evolution can come up with similar solutions, even in totally unrelated animals.
And we can't forget about walruses and their crazy tusks.
Oh yeah, those are multi-purpose tools.
Not just for eating.
Definitely not. Hauling themselves out of the water, battling rivals, even digging for clams.
It's amazing how much we can learn about an animal's behavior just by looking at its teeth.
It really is.
Okay, I think we've covered a lot of ground here, from saber-toothed cats to walruses. But there's a whole other world of digestive wonders waiting for us beyond those pearly whites.
You're telling me.
So in a final part of our deep dive, we'll move beyond teeth and explore the fascinating world of guts and beaks.
Guts and beaks.
Discovering how these structures have evolved to process food in all sorts of incredible ways.
Get ready for a truly wild ride through the digestive system.
All right, welcome back. We've been on this amazing journey, through the world of animal design, using teeth as our guide. But now it's time to venture even deeper, past those pearly gates and into the fascinating world of guts and beaks.
Yeah, it's like we've been admiring the sleek exterior of a sports car, but now we're popping the hood to see the engine that makes it all...
I'm all about getting under the hood.
And trust me, the digestive system is just as impressive as any finely tuned machine.
So where do we start? I know the chapter makes a big distinction between, what's going on in the bellies of carnivores versus herbivores, meat versus plants. It's like the ultimate food showdown.
Absolutely. And their digestive systems are total reflections of that. Meat is relatively easy to break down. So carnivores like wolves or lions have a pretty straightforward digestive tract.
Okay.
Short, efficient, built for quickly processing those protein-rich meals.
So they're all about efficiency. In and out. No fuss, no muss. But what about herbivores? Plants seem like they'd be a lot more work to digest.
Oh, you're absolutely right. Plants are way more challenging to break down than meat. That's why herbivores, like cows or horses, have evolved these much longer and more complex intestines.
So they've had to get creative.
They've essentially outsourced some of the digestion to an army of tiny helpers.
Tiny helpers.
All those good bacteria we hear about?
Oh, yeah.
They play a huge role here.
Okay.
These microbes live in specialized chambers within the herbivore's gut, and they possess the biochemical tools to break down those tough plant fibers.
So herbivores are basically walking fermentation tanks.
In a way, yes. It's a win-win situation. The microbes get a cozy home and a steady food supply, and the herbivore gets the nutrients it needs.
It's like a microscopic roommate situation.
Exactly.
And the chapter mentions a really cool example of this in the bird world, right? Something about a punk rock bird with crazy hair.
Oh, you mean the hoatzin?
The hoatzin.
Yeah, it's the only bird that's a dedicated leaf eater. And to handle that tough diet, it has evolved multiple gut chambers, much like those of ruminant mammals.
Like cows.
Exactly.
Wow. So even though birds don't have teeth, they've found another way to tackle those leafy greens.
Evolution is a master problem solver.
Okay, so speaking of problem solving, let's talk about beaks. They're like a bird's ultimate multi-tool.
Oh, yeah. Each one perfectly shaped for its specific feeding strategy.
It's like a Swiss Army knife of beaks.
Yeah.
You've got the nutcracker beak for parrots, the delicate needle-nose beak for hummingbirds, the sharp hook beak for eagles. I mean, the variety is incredible.
And each beak tells a story about the bird's diet and lifestyle.
Right.
The chapter provides some amazing examples. Parrots using their beaks to manipulate objects almost like hands. Flamingos filtering tiny crustaceans with their upside-down beaks. Stimmers literally plowing the water's surface with their lower beak to catch fish. It's mind-blowing.
It really is. And the chapter mentions that even tiny differences in beak shape can reflect major adaptations.
Right? Absolutely. The classic examples are Darwin's finches and the Galapagos and the Hawaiian honeycreepers.
Right.
Both of these groups of birds show how, starting from a common ancestor, a whole range of beak shapes evolved in response to the different types of food available on those islands.
Like evolution was given a few isolated islands as its playground and just went wild with beak design.
And it's not just about the beak shape either. The muscles that control it play a huge role.
Right.
Think of woodpeckers with their powerful neck muscles letting them hammer into wood with incredible force.
They're like nature's jackhammers.
And then you have herons with their lightning-fast reflexes and spear-like beaks, perfectly designed for snatching fish. The chapter even mentions that some herons will use their wings to create shade on the water, reducing glare and improving their underwater vision.
It's like they've evolved their own fishing gear.
And then there are those archerfish literally spitting water bullets at unsuspecting insects.
Oh, yeah, I've seen videos of those guys. Amazing.
Talk about marksmanship. Their mouths work like water pistols, and they even seem to adjust their aim to account for the refraction of light at the water's surface.
Okay, so we've gone from teeth to guts to beaks. It's amazing to see how much diversity there is in the way animals fuel their bodies. But before we wrap up this whole deep dive, I think we need to bring it back to us humans. What do our own teeth and guts tell us about where we came from?
That's a great point. If we compare ourselves to our extinct hominin relatives like Paranthropus, our jaws and teeth have become remarkably smaller over time.
Well, we're not exactly spending our days gnawing on tough roots and tubers anymore.
Right. And this reduction in jaw and tooth size lines up perfectly with the shift towards a more varied diet, including cooked foods.
Right. Cooking. That's a big one. The chapter even highlights the work of Richard Dawkins, who argues that cooking played a crucial role in our evolution.
Wrangham's theory is that cooking made food easier to digest, giving us more calories to power those big brains of ours.
It's fascinating to think that something as simple as cooking might have been a driving force in our evolution.
Absolutely. It's a reminder that our biology is intertwined with our culture and technology.
So as we sit here enjoying our cooked meals, we're carrying the legacy of our ancestors. Those tree-dwelling primates who discovered the power of fire and transformed themselves into the humans we are today.
It's a powerful reminder that we're part of this long, incredible evolutionary story, and this deep dive has just scratched the surface. There are countless other examples of animal design waiting to be explored, from the bioluminescence of deep-sea creatures to the echolocation of bats.
It's like the natural world is this endless source of inspiration and wonder. So the next time you encounter an animal, whether it's a pigeon on the street or a lion in a documentary, take a moment to really look at it. Think about the why behind its features. You might just unlock some incredible stories of adaptation and survival.
Well said. And remember, evolution is a continuous process. Every living thing is a work in progress, a testament to the ongoing dance between adaptation and survival.
Well, that's all for our deep dive this time. We hope you've enjoyed this journey into the incredible world of animal